Looking back, I think things started unraveling in July 2020. June had been a great month. Our family took a short vacation, just the three of us and our son's friend. Those moments felt perfect. We laughed, relaxed, and bonded in a way that reminded me why I loved my wife and our little family. It felt like we were solid, unshakable. But July brought change. At first, it was small, pointless arguments, her seeming distant, avoiding intimacy, and being less interested in my day. I tried to reach out, asking how she was feeling, but it was like she'd built a wall between us. She started spending long stretches of time locked in the bathroom and seemed tense all the time. I couldn't figure out what was wrong, but the distance between us grew. By August, the tension was suffocating. She tried to act like everything was fine, even showing me lingerie she said was for my birthday. It was a cruel twist of hope. When my birthday arrived, she gave me a couple of albums. Nice gifts, but nothing close to what her earlier gesture had implied. That day, I came home from a stressful day at work, and she claimed her day had been rough too. We ended up making dinner and sitting in silence, more like roommates than partners. September brought bigger fights, heated arguments where emotions spilled over. After one of them, she begged for some space, saying she needed time alone. Her request stung, filling me with fear that our marriage was slipping away. I left the house with our dogs and stayed the night at my brother's, hoping time apart might help. It didn't. When I returned the next day, she had plans to go out with friends and was cold, distant, and even cruel when she came home. She mumbled something about how terrible the month had been. I wanted to believe her mood was temporary, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. Even as things crumbled, I clung to the belief that we could fix it. I loved her. I loved the family we had built together. A friend at work noticed my stress and suggested marriage counseling. He recommended a book on love languages, and I started reading, hoping to gain insight into what had gone wrong. Maybe I had neglected her while growing my business with my brother during the chaos of COVID. I wasn't perfect, but I had always tried to show her love, to be there for her in the ways I thought mattered. Then came the morning I thought might change everything. I poured my heart out, admitting where I'd fallen short, sharing what I'd learned from the book, and suggesting counseling. I hoped we could rebuild, that love and honesty could heal us. But instead of reassuring me, she broke down and confessed she had been cheating. It had started in July as an emotional affair and turned physical just the weekend before. My worst fears were confirmed. At that moment, my world collapsed. I told her I could forgive her if she was honest and committed to rebuilding what we had. But instead of remorse, she offered half-truths and evasion. My trust was shattered, and I was left wondering if there was anything left to save. Her confession changed everything. I had thought our problems were rooted in stress, miscommunication, or maybe the challenges of adjusting to life after the pandemic. But now I knew the truth. She had been unfaithful, not just emotionally but physically. She admitted she'd been talking to this man, someone I'll call AP, since July, and that it escalated in September. I was crushed. I loved my wife, our son, and the life we had built. But how was I supposed to trust her again? She had mocked the vows we made and the family we were trying to build. Still, I tried to stay calm. I asked her to come clean, to be honest with me about everything. But she gave me no details, no names, just the bare minimum. Her silence spoke louder than words. I felt betrayed and humiliated. That night, I tried to talk to her, desperate to understand why she had done this. She brushed me off, cold and indifferent. Meanwhile, she told AP that she had told me everything, as if that absolved her. By Friday, I was a mess, exhausted, sick to my stomach, and overwhelmed with anger and heartbreak. Saturday morning, I hit my breaking point. I called my dad for advice. My parents had survived infidelity in their marriage, and I thought he might have wisdom to share. His words were blunt. This wasn't a mistake. She knew what she was doing. Now it's up to her to decide if she wants her family or him. After gathering myself, I cleaned the house and made sure our son was okay. Then I went down to our apartment gym to confront her. When she finished her workout, I told her she needed to choose, our marriage and family, or this man. Her response? I'm not sure. Her hesitation felt like a slap in the face. Still, I tried one last time. I told her I could forgive her, but only if she cut all contact with AP. She agreed, but her actions didn't match her words. She went for a 2-hour run after our conversation, and when she came back, she was distant. When I pressed her again, she admitted she didn't know what she wanted. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed a duffel bag and told her I was leaving. That's when she broke down, screaming as if she hadn't expected me to actually go. I kissed our son goodbye and told him I'd be staying with my brother for a while. He seemed distracted by his video games, but I could see the confusion in his eyes. The next morning, I returned to pack the rest of my things. I moved quickly, stuffing my belongings into trash bags. She sat on the bed, crying but saying nothing. When she finally asked what I was doing, I told her I was leaving because of the choices she had made. Even then, I felt torn. Part of me wanted to stay, to hold her and fix what was broken. But when I asked her to be honest, she stayed silent. That silence spoke volumes. Furious and heartbroken, I left, determined to create some distance between us. But the pain lingered. I wanted to protect our son from the fallout, so I came back every morning to take him to school and make sure he was taken care of. Meanwhile, her parents started asking questions. When they found out what she had done, they were devastated. Her father told me to hire a lawyer and prepare for the worst. The more time passed, the clearer it became that she wasn't ready to let go of AP. She claimed she had ended things, but when I saw her phone, the truth came out. She was still in contact with him, sending messages about how he made her feel amazing and how I had failed her. Those words cut deeper than anything else. That week, I found myself spiraling. I wanted to keep things normal for our son, but the weight of what was happening was unbearable. She kept reaching out, saying she hated herself and wanted to reconcile, but her actions told a different story. When I pushed her to prove she had cut ties with AP, she couldn't do it. One evening, I found something that confirmed my worst fears. While tidying up, I stumbled upon a shoebox in her closet. Inside was a new vibrator, still in its packaging, along with a note from AP's wife. The note revealed that AP was married with kids and that my wife's affair had destroyed his family as well as ours. It also included a receipt for gifts AP had sent her, dated right after I moved out. That discovery broke me. I took photos of everything and went straight to her parents to show them. Her father's anger turned to sadness as he apologized to me, saying he couldn't believe his daughter had done this. He urged me to file for divorce, and that same day, I contacted a lawyer. In the weeks that followed, I tried to hold things together for our son. I picked him up from school, cooked meals for him, and made sure he felt loved. Meanwhile, I avoided unnecessary contact with her. She started dating AP openly, which only deepened the pain. Eventually, I had to make the hardest decision of all. I gave her the house as part of our settlement, knowing it was the best option for our son. She got custody, and I received visitation rights. It felt like losing everything, but I couldn't keep fighting a one-sided battle. She and AP are planning to move in together, and her parents have cut her off completely. Meanwhile, I've started to rebuild my life. I'm dating someone new, someone who understands the scars I carry. My son has warmed up to her, and seeing him smile gives me hope that the wounds from this chapter will heal, slowly but surely. The divorce papers were a final step, but not the end of the pain. When I handed them to her, I half hoped it would wake her up to the reality of what she had done. Instead, she signed them with an almost resigned air. 4 months, we lived in this strange limbo where our marriage was legally ending, but emotionally, I still felt chained to the wreckage she had created. As October rolled in, I focused on keeping life as stable as possible for our son. Every morning, I drove to the house to get him ready for school, cooked him breakfast, and tried to make things feel normal. At the same time, I couldn't ignore how broken our household was. The house I had poured my love and energy into no longer felt like home. Her parents were supportive, but their sadness mirrored my own. Her father, who had always respected me, repeatedly apologized for her actions. He said I deserved better and encouraged me to focus on rebuilding my life. He admitted they had disowned her after learning the full extent of the affair. It was small comfort, but at least I wasn't alone in my anger and heartbreak. Despite everything, she kept reaching out to me, sending mixed messages that left me even more confused. Some days, she'd say she wanted to reconcile, but on others, she'd act as though nothing had happened and that she had no regrets. One evening, she even invited me to sit with her on the couch. She wrapped her arms around me, acting as though we could just go back to how things were before. For a brief moment, I almost believed it. But then her phone rang. It was a distinct ringtone, one I hadn't heard before, and I saw the panic in her eyes. She claimed it was AP, saying he had been calling her non-stop since she told him it was over. I asked her to show me proof that she had ended things. She refused, breaking into tears, but by then, I didn't need her to confirm anything. Her actions told me all I needed to know. I grabbed her phone and looked through the messages myself. What I found was devastating. She had been telling AP how wonderful he made her feel, how he fulfilled something I couldn't, and how she felt alive with him in a way she hadn't with me. It was like being stabbed in the heart over and over. I handed the phone back to her, not saying a word, and left. The weight of her betrayal was suffocating, but what hurt the most was how our son was caught in the middle. He could sense the tension, even if he didn't fully understand it. I tried to shield him from the worst of it, but every time I dropped him off or picked him up, he looked at me with eyes that asked questions I didn't know how to answer. The worst was yet to come. One afternoon, while she was out, I stopped by the house to grab a few things. Something compelled me to check her closet again. That's when I found the shoebox. Inside was a collection of items that confirmed everything I had suspected. There was a new vibrator, still in its packaging, along with a gift message from AP. The postmark on the package was dated the day after I had moved out. But the most damning piece was a letter from AP's wife. The letter revealed the full extent of the destruction my wife's affair had caused. AP wasn't just married, he had a family. The letter included a photo of AP's wife and kids, alongside a note where she wrote that my wife had ruined her marriage and could keep him if she wanted. The gifts in the shoebox were evidence of their ongoing relationship, even after she had claimed it was over. I took photos of everything and went straight to her parents. When I showed them what I had found, they were horrified. Her father's face turned red with anger, and her mother broke down in tears. They apologized to me again and said there was no saving her from the consequences of her actions. Her father urged me to move forward with a divorce and protect myself. That night, I filed for divorce. It felt like an acknowledgement of defeat, but also a necessary step toward reclaiming my life. When I handed her the papers, she seemed shocked, as though she hadn't expected me to follow through. She asked if there was any chance we could work things out, but I told her that trust was the foundation of any marriage, and she had shattered it beyond repair. 4 months, we navigated the legal process. The settlement required me to give her the house, which I hated but accepted for the sake of our son. She got custody, and I was granted visitation rights. Letting go of my home, my family, and the life I had built was devastating. She didn't seem to feel the weight of what she had done. She began openly dating AP, and they started making plans to move in together. Meanwhile, her parents cut her off completely, removing her from any inheritance. I think they were as heartbroken as I was, watching her throw everything away for someone who had ruined his own family too. As for me, I started to rebuild. I met someone new, and while the scars of my failed marriage are still fresh, I'm beginning to find hope again. My girlfriend has been patient and kind, and my son seems to enjoy spending time with her. Seeing him smile again has been the one bright spot in an otherwise dark chapter. The end of my marriage felt like the loss of a life I had worked so hard to build. The betrayal, the heartbreak, and the long nights of doubt are wounds that still linger, but I've come to accept that some chapters must close for new ones to begin. My ex-wife's choices destroyed not only our family but also another. Her relationship with AP seems to have solidified, but at a tremendous cost. Her parents have disowned her, her inheritance is gone, and the trust of those who loved her most has evaporated. I still carry the weight of her actions, but I've decided to channel my energy into healing and building a better life for myself and my son. Parenting is my anchor. My son's well-being is my priority, and I do everything I can to keep his life stable. He's adapting, though I know the situation has left him confused. I've kept records of everything for the future, not out of spite, but to provide clarity for him when he's old enough to understand what happened. I've started dating someone new, and while it's still early, I'm hopeful. My girlfriend has shown me that love doesn't have to hurt. Watching my son laugh and bond with her gives me hope that, despite everything, a brighter future is possible. This chapter of my life has been the most painful, but I'm choosing to see it as a stepping stone towards something better. Trust will take time to rebuild, both in myself and others, but I know I'm on the right path. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please click the subscribe button. Your support means a lot and helps me share more stories like this.